welcome to What the Hex, your source for Warhammer Underworlds. In under 30 times, we hurled ourselves against the top of the meta to bring you some quality content. I'm your co-host, Davey, and with me, I have the top of the pile, Phil. How are you doing, Phil?
Hey, I'm back from the non-existent.
Yeah, back from IT purgatory.
Yeah,
and Brian, how are you doing, Brian?
Am I the bottom of the pile then?
Oh, you're both the top of the pile.
I want to be at the bottom.
Okay, well, now you're the bottom of the pile. Congratulations.
What's up, guys?
We are coming to you on, what is the day? It is the 27th of February. And gosh, the best context I could give for this is that we just learned some bombshell news. Oh my God, reverberations throughout. What is the name of this product, guys? It's Legends of the Mirrored City?
Rivals of the Mirrored City.
Oh man. So it is, it looks like, as far as we know, and we have no additional knowledge other than what has been shared on Warhammer Community, it looks like 4 warbands. That would be Zarbag's Gitz, Molog's Mob, Thorns of the Briar Queen, and Spikeclaw's Swarm, all being re-released models and a totally revamped Rivals decks, and they are coming out. So you presume that we have not seen any of the cards, but we presume they've got like the new style art, kind of the full screen art, and then actual functional decks. And maybe revamped fighter cards, probably revamped fighter cards. This is an exciting time, guys.
Yeah, I can confirm Zarbag's gets S tier again.
Yeah, S tier.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Cards unseen. Brian calling a shot. S tier.
Let's do it.
The only 9 fighter warband going to be S tier in this meta. Calling
Which old
it
is
now.
new again. Let's bring it.
I mean, I tell you what, this was such exciting news that I almost tried to gather you guys together and just do I was like, what can we do? Can we do like a Patreon episode? Just do pure predictions. And so, in fact, we're not going to do that. But what I am going to do is ask you guys, each of you, to give me like a 30-second prediction or hype or wish list for what you want to see out of this. And Phil, you can go first.
Molog will not be a problem. I'm gonna try and call that now.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And otherwise, I think just that all of these warbands will be solidly playable in the sort of modern age of the game, which I think is a great thing to have, because there's some really cool models that are getting renewed life with these decks.
Yeah. Man, Brian, what's your wish list / prediction / whatever you may want?
So just writ large, obviously they'll have 32 cards each, and that's exciting. I hope that a lot of the cards are revamped so that they actually function, and they kind of reward you for doing things that the warband already wants to do, instead of something outlandish like Spikeclaw Swarm having 3 third end phases.
Some of which are like 1 glory third end phases. Like,
yeah. Get invested.
Mega oof.
But I would like to see Molog, if they're going to give him a twist, since the charge out rule is a thing. Yeah. It's interesting because Stalagosquig might just be a built-in mechanic to mean that Molog doesn't get to charge out.
Yeah.
And also, what I'd like to see is kind of he becomes more of an expansion of like the companion rule. I'd like to see if Bat Squig and Spite Shroom have more of a role to play. Sure.
It would be amazing to see the Squigs matter a little bit more in that warband. I mean, they clearly tried to do it the first time around. There's a lot of that deck that involves the Squigs, and none of it is something that you would take in most competitive builds. Although Jazz has punished me with a number of those cards, so who can say? For myself, my wish list is just that they retain the tasty flavor of all 4 of those warbands, while getting them modernized. And if I had to zone in on one, Thorns of the Briar Queen, they were such a tremendously interesting warband that had a few great cards and a lot of flotsam in their deck. much like most of these war bands. And so really excited to see what they can do for it. It's it is shocking. Like this is so essentially 4 new war bands getting dropped, right? Like,
Yeah.
As far as potential meta shifts go. So exciting stuff.
Niche thing here, but I did recently get a slap in the face of Nightvault. I played against Cameron's Thorns of the Briar Queen Daring Delvers, and I was playing Void Curse Thrall's Scabix Plague Pack.
Yeah.
I was corrupting all 3 lands in round 1, and then I got Howling Vortexed. And I only corrupted 1. It was a card I've heard tale of, and I'm like, I mean, it sounds like it had to be pretty niche, but like I'm sure it was crippling for hold objectives, and then it was like he did it to me for corrupting lands. I was like, oh Lord.
Yeah. 75% of the time it works every time.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Thorns were a menace for a while.
Oh, totally.
Back in the day. So hopefully they're not like the joke everybody's been making is like, oh, Moloch's gonna be back,
right?
And nobody's happy about it. And it's like, as scary as Moloch was at certain points, I feel like Thorns performed way better. So it'll be interesting.
Certainly had their time during hold objective champion play. Like each one of these warbands, maybe with the exception of Spikeclaw Swarm, has been a menace. But Spikeclaw Swarm has always been lurking, and what was it? I think Skylar or Alex would be remiss if I didn't mention. What was a thing where you could do 2 extra damage? Hidden.
It was like the Festering Blades.
Yeah, there was something before my time
on a crit.
You could do.
Yeah, they had Grievous 2 back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, plenty of crazy stuff here. I mean, but it's a good point. Like the first Adepticon Grand Clash was won by one of the Bills brothers, knocked Amon out in a Stormstars Cursebreakers versus Thorns, and so Thorns took that first Acon. There's a lot of rich history here, and then Spikeclaw Swarm was piloted to many a victory by John Wynn Reese, the notorious JWR over Can You Roll Crit. So a lot of history behind these. So that's perhaps more than we've ever done on Context, but it's such a momentous thing that whenever those start coming our way, you're going to start hearing about them from us. We're going to have to figure out that I can already tell you whenever that arrives, it's going to be a big headache to figure out how to get content to you guys, but we're going to make it happen. So. But our topic for today, which we haven't even mentioned, is a battle report. It's been a long time since we did an audio battle report, and interesting. All the or many of the podcasts that are covering Underworlds have taken a little bit of a shine to masks here. So I think Path to Glory talked about Val taking masks to an event. Getting ahead of ourselves, but Battle Mallet just released an episode where they kind of featured some of their Malevolent Masks builds. So we decided we were going to try and do kind of simultaneous before we knew these things were coming out. We were going to try and get a Masks battle report out. So we played a number of games and picked a good one for you. So that's coming up. But before we get to that, community shout outs. Who's got something they want to hit?
A little bit of self-promotion here is Skylar just aired his first live streaming episode of What the Decks. His tagline is From Lunchbox to Deckbox. Basically, in the span of roughly an hour. Went a little long today, but still figuring things out. He's going to do a live deck build, kind of help players get a sense for how the process is done if you're not familiar with deck building, and then kind of see how he does things and how the ideas percolate. So first episode is up, and it was pretty good.
You can expect it on a weekly basis. It's a really cool thing that he's doing, and it's a thing that we're glad to kind of be putting under our umbrella here.
Yeah. It's going to be over on our shared YouTube channel for the Mortal Realms. So if you haven't checked that out before, that's where you'll find those.
Go ahead.
I guess I will shout out, since a couple of the other things I'd written down we've kind of already discussed, but just something that had come up sort of naturally in our Discord recently, and because we had recently had a focus on new players and new player resources, the Monkey's Hex blog. This is not a new thing. This is not a new post, but a stellar resource if you're trying to learn the ins and outs of this board side of the strategy of playing Underworlds. He's got some really great guides on like, how do you want to set up your boards? Where do you want to place your tokens? What are the good boards for certain types of token placement? Just a super deep dive on some really next level stuff, which is really cool. And I think a part of the game that lots of newer players struggle with.
Yeah, I think if you are really looking for a way to take your game to the next level, this is the blog you want to hit up, because this is where you can really leverage some serious advantage if you are understanding this part of the game really well.
Yeah.
I'm getting some kind of static. It's coming in. It sounds like it's coming from points north. During community shoutouts, we like to talk about the people and events that shape the community. And there's one we've been talking a little bit about already. That's the Alberta Classic. And I really just thought we couldn't quite do it justice without bringing the man himself on. Who better to talk about it than Derek? Derek, what can you tell us about the Alberta Classic? There it is.
Hey, first off, it is in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, on May 4th. For those of you who don't know, this is the premier Canadian Underworlds event of the year. We're really proud of it. We started doing this back in 2020 before Nurgle got his plague all over us, and we've built it up over the last few years, and it's always really exciting to get the people from not just from Canada and across the country, but also our American friends and enemies, as well as we've gotten some decent international attendance the last year or so. So yeah, May 4th, Calgary, Alberta. It's at the Ogre's Den Gaming Club. Tickets are only $20. That's 20 loonies. So that's I'm not sure what the exchange rate right now. I think each loonie is only worth about 60 American pennies. Do you guys use pennies?
We do use pennies. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Around there. We do have. We actually don't have. Sorry. Any hotel deals. However, there are 2 hotels nearby that we have been able to get some discounted rates as opposed to a whole block rate. What else is really cool about this? Oh, and we not only have a world qualifier opportunity, we have 3 world qualifier tickets. So there now, Davey, were you at the World Championships of Warhammer for Underworlds last year?
No, I was not, Derek.
No, and you know what? That's because we really stacked the deck with a whole bunch of Canadians. And yeah. I got to tell you, if you don't want a third of the field being from the Great White North, I reckon y'all better come up here and take some of these tickets.
I that sounds like a good idea. I know one person, Thomas, has got his ticket in hand, is venturing forth, and I think he's bringing somebody with him. But I'll say this, I'd encourage anyone to do so. It's not, that's not 3 just hanging there easy for the taking. You guys have some brawlers up there. I know, Beard Arm being one that every time I happen to wander by the Vassal Discord, I notice that he is looking for a game. So that guy's getting his reps in. If anyone wants to steal him, they're really gonna have to fight for him is my, anticipated take there.
I would think so too. And for those of you who don't know G or Guillaume, he is from Ottawa. And actually, I'm going to plug the Canadian Tabletop Championships on May, I want to say it's 25th. I'm going to quickly check it to make sure. May 25th and 26th in Ottawa. They actually also have 3 qualifier tickets. Now, for those of you who don't know, G, I think, finished 5th at Worlds last year. So he actually already has his qualifying ticket. He will be at the Alberta Classic, but he can't get a qualifier ticket there. So yeah, even if you lose to the best, you still got a good chance of getting a ticket in there. I know that I'll be TOing the event, but I already do have my ticket. I think a couple of the guys from Vancouver who also already have their tickets. So you're not only going to get to play against some of the top players in Canada, or dare I say the world, but you'll also get an opportunity to play for them and still get your qualifying tickets, win or lose. But I got to tell you, if you win, you're going to feel real good about it.
You can hold your head up high.
That's very true. The other one I do want to mention, GameCon, which is Canada's largest gaming convention. They are big on all the Games Workshop games. I think they have somewhere like a 150 person 40K and AOS narrative event. They also bring all the, MSI is a big sponsor. I know lots of the other big video game and computer tech companies will have some neat stuff there. But they, for the first time ever, they are having a Underworld's Grand Clash. It also has, I think, 2 qualifying tickets from there. That is June 15th to 16th in Edmonton. Beard Arm, or Bear Dam, depending on how you pronounce it, will be TOing that event. It's going to be a great time too, not just for the Underworlds, but for the whole weekend there. So we are assembling a Canadian team, and I got to tell you, unless you want, and I realize I already said that we're going to be sending a whole bunch of people to Worlds, but we're going to party like it's 1812, baby.
All right, watch out, White House. That's awesome. Hey, Derek, I wanted to say thanks for coming in and bumping all the events coming from the Great White North, America's Hat. And for people who are going to these, one thing we mentioned is some of the Worlds tickets that are available there. Those are a valuable commodity, and to get them, you have to podium or win at a Clash. And you have any advice for anyone who's looking to do that?
I really do. And actually, this came from being at LVO this year and getting to meet all the Hex crew and your entire Madison team. The big thing that I think carried a lot of people through, and I call this sweetie support. And I'm going to start off the bat with a couple experiences that I had. And the first, you have a team there, Alex and Jazz, and I want to stick tap them right here, because they are the cutest couple in all Warhammer Underworlds, and I would say easily the most talented couple at rolling dice at this game. I had the honor to play both of them, and one of the things that I noticed was that they were supporting each other through the entire thing. We were going into my final game against Jazz, and Alex came by and gave her some words of affirmation, and I didn't hear what he said, but I saw Jazz just light up there, and I was like, man, you know what? That's pretty cute. And I'm thinking just a little bit about, man, that's really awesome. I'm really glad that they support each other. At about the same time, I get a phone call, and it's my sweetie in Calgary, and she calls me. She's like, hey, you know what? You've got this. You're going to win the tournament. And you know what? I kid you not. I stood a little bit straighter. I stuck my chest out a little bit more. I got my dice ready to go, because you get that energy, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one more. And this is that night. If anybody who's listened to your podcast before knows, the finals of LVO was not the main event.
Yeah.
It was that pink slip match.
Yeah.
And so it was Brian playing against Sleeksbull there.
Mm-hmm.
And Davey, I don't know if you could tell, but I had a couple after celebrating my win of the tournament there.
There were some subtle hints.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so in order to not interfere with the noise of the podcast, I'm sort of watching from the other side of the room and having a couple more. And Brian's wife, Brenna, comes by, and I think you all were going out afterwards because she's dressed to the nines. And we're sort of chatting a bit. And I'm like, well, why aren't you watching the game? And she's like, I just don't want to distract Brian. And I'm like, you know what, that makes sense. But in between every game, she's coming by, she's giving a little kiss. I'm sure she's whispering words of encouragement. And Brian took that in a come from behind in a really tight game. So what I need to tell everybody, sweetie support. Because before you even get to that tournament, whether you have gone there by yourself or you're going with your partner, knowing that your partner is giving you their full support. So before you start rolling dice for Underworlds, if your lady or your guy wants to go for a hike or go to the farmer's market or do some knitting or whatever it is that they tell you to do in order for you to get all those points, that you can go there with their blessing, with all their support, with those words of affirmation. That's what you got to do. Because I got to tell you, if you're going in there and you've got half your mind on, man, is my lady mad at me for being here? Did she just make some passive-aggressive comment? You've lost half the battle right there. So, sweetie support.
Sweetie support. We love it. Well, Derek, I thank you for hopping on with us for a second here and giving us the lowdown from up high in Canada, and a little bit of a tip for anyone who's looking to get down to Atlanta this at the end of this year. It's there's a lot of hype around it, and I'm really excited. I hope even if I don't make it, I hope I can we get somebody from our area gets to go rep. But really excited to hear about it either way. So,
dude, I hope to see you there, man. That we had a great time in Vegas, and I would love to do it again in Atlanta.
I would too. I'll see what I can do. Okay, we're back.
Canadian hackers.
Using their maple syrup to get us.
It's everywhere. No.
They bribe baby with poutine.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
All right. I think that about covers what we want to hit for the community this time around. We've had plenty of preamble. I think we should get into it. And this was a game that Phil and I played. When we prep for these, we usually play a number of games. We try and find which game had the most interesting things to say about it. And I think we played a total of 4 games, and all of them were Mournful Masks versus various top tier things from the current meta. And by top tier things in the current meta, I mean Ephelum and Domitans. I think almost always paired with Force of Frost, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So we are specifically bringing you Mournful Masks versus the Blizzard Coven today. And that is me piloting the Mournful Masks and Phil piloting the Blizzard Coven. Brian is going to be our harsh but fair moderator for this. And so, Brian, I'm gonna hand you the reins here. It's all yours, sir.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Cotton. All right. And here we go. Davey, can you give us a little idea of what you're bringing?
Yeah, so I got really hyped on masks. I've been running a lot with Grimwatch, but I got to actually play against Val with when he was prepping for his event, and so I did Grimwatch masks into Mournflight masks, and I knew they had potential, and was really excited by what he had done there. So this is Mournflight. What Masks really wants is some way to get Seed Glory, and Mournflight have that specifically 2 of their surges, and that would be One Will and Fleeting Memories. So hold an even and odd surge and move through 2 surge. And then a relatively decent one, which is move through a block text and end adjacent to somebody. So they probably have like 3 surges where they can get the Seed Glory going and then just cascade from there. So this deck is all about holding a little bit of offense to try and counterpunch, kick people out. It has glory ceiling of 18 or 19, depending on how the one end phase goes that scores you. Actually can even get up to 19, I think is where it caps out without kills. So pretty good for a Nemesis deck. And there were some very recent changes based on some things that I realized were egregious oversights, but I've played this a couple times, and this was our most recent game with it.
All right, and Phil, this Boomer Warband gets a new universal deck and thinks that it can return back to supremacy. However, the new kids on the block have to say otherwise. What are you bringing with the Domitan Storm Coven?
Well, I'm not sure I would consider the Mournflight to be boomers, considering how far into the game they came out. But yeah, Stormcoven, we are gonna be running with Force of Frost here, and this is a build that I've been working on and sort of tweaking for a while now. I've sort of been oscillating back and forth between like full aggro and fairly control, and trying to find sort of a happy medium between the two, which is what I've tried to do here, is to have a pretty balanced build where I can sort of flex to whatever my opponent is doing. It has a lot of spell casting, which shouldn't be surprising, and it has a lot of just useful tools to sort of just be able to take advantage of whatever situation comes up. It is not leaning into ice tokens too much, mostly because of post errata. It's a little hard to get them. And it is not trying to do too many of the Stormcoven's like hold an enemy territory things. There's just a one of those. So it's sort of going to end up becoming something of a sort of middle ground deck is the hope, and looking to continue tooling it.
All right, yeah. So passive spellcasty Domitans. All right. So starting off, who won the roll off for boards?
Phil actually won this, and it was a tough choice. Phil, how did you land on what you landed on?
So I was thinking about the fact that you do need that seed glory, and that your seed glory tends to come from things like your objective for flying through 2 objectives, and for like flying through a blocked hex and landing adjacent to one of my fighters. So I thought that it would be advantageous for me to place the first board and have a little more control over the objectives and how they get placed. In retrospect, I think maybe that was a mistake because of how the objective placement rules have changed, so that it's kind of hard to end up blocking somebody out. But either way, I don't think this was a bad setup. And I started with, I believe this is called the Glacial Tomb, which is a pretty balanced board. It's one of the new ones from Death Gorge, and it has pretty even distributions of starting hexes, so that no matter how Davey was going to orient the boards, I'd have a pretty nice triangle of deployment spots.
Yeah. For me, I responded with the Shattered Tower. It is something that is in one of the starters, but it's if Brian says I got a boomer warband, then I definitely took a boomer board.
Yeah.
This is what
he's bringing the board with 2 adjacent blocked hexes and a single lone adjacent blocked hex with a single space in between those 2. And he has set those up max offset so that the 3 blocked hexes are forwardmost towards that convergence of the boards.
Yeah, my idea here is that Phil has plenty of things that have range 2 or range 3, so he's going to disrupt that. I want blocked hexes because I can fly through them. I kind of forgot, honestly, a little bit that once what's her face, Leona gets inspired, that she's going to make Phil also fly, so he's going to go through them as well. But I have a surge that wants these to go off, or wants these to be there. The one tricky thing is that the hexes that exist once I place like that aren't really on the very back edge, so I have to place kind of close to. But I forget, as someone who has not played this warband a ton, inspiring is real nice, and if you place way back, it's really hard to be able to inspire if you can't get somebody to come way towards you. But yeah.
So for objective placement, Phil, did you place the number 4 there right across no man's land?
I did. So there's 2 reasons for doing this. One is that if I place one sort of right along the front edge of Davy's territory, that cuts off some of his spots near the blocked hexes, so that it forces the rest of his placements to be a little bit further away, which means he's kind of having to move away from the hex that I want, which is number 4. Like I said, there's that one objective for holding an enemy territory. And so this is my pretty standard start when I have objectives with the Stormcoven, just because I want to guarantee that I have one that's really close for me to go stand on when I need to, and it can tend to mess up some of the placement for my opponent.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is a mixed bag for me because I on the one hand, we don't know this is objective 4 right away, but the more that are in my territory, the more I have a chance to have access to an even and an odd, if it's not buried. But having one that is closer is helpful for getting onto, but I really want one that is in no man's or just across the line, because that helps me. There's 2 surges that are in masks that want you to hold one or more that are in enemy or no one's territory. And so by placing this, that makes the alternate scoring condition on those ones really hard for me to achieve. So at first I was like, it's great because this makes one will easier, but then I realized that it makes Audacious Aspect, and I can't remember the name of the other one, but it makes those a little more challenging. So it's like, maybe it's not so great.
So then for the other objective placements, did you both just place 2 in your own territory, or did Davey, did you try and get one as close as you could into his territory?
No, I kind of gave up on that. If I thought about it more, I might have been able to position something to make Phil place something in mine, but I kind of abandoned that. And I was trying to place things to like, okay, well, like, can I set it up so that a push, if I manage to draw into there, I have one push in there, which is involves having an upgrade on somebody, like get me onto something, and also make sure I have them close enough where I could score fleeting memories on the first turn if I needed to. Also trying to place them because I'm going to definitely stand on them, and I would rather that they were somewhere that it was a little bit trickier for Phil to get line of sight to. So those were all factors going into placement. This was a pretty challenging part of this game. There were so many things going into the placement. It was a pretty important part of this game.
Yeah, so for the listeners, in the icy tundra of Domitan's home field, there's objective 1 and 3 placed quite far back. 3 is in the center line of the board, 1 is in the center line of the board, and 3 is further back away from Davy's territory. In Davy's home field, he's got the number 4 objective right across no man's land into Davy's territory, adjacent to the line of 2 blocked hexes. And this line of sight kind of means somebody charging onto 4 could shoot a range 3 attack at a starting hex, which is back behind the center line of Davy's home field board, which is where objective number 5 and 2 are living. He doesn't have line of sight to either 5 and 2 from objective 4.
Yep.
Does that sort of make sense? Trying to paint a picture here as best I can.
Some mind theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The blocked hexes are blocking the line of sight from objective 4 to objectives 5 or 2. So we've got our cards drawn. Do you guys choose to mulligan here? I'm going to advance to see if you do.
So it's on Phil first here, I think.
It is. And I like my opening hand quite a bit, so I am not interested in getting rid of anything.
Yeah.
I've got 2 really easy surges, a third not so easy surge, and then I've got 4 gambits, 2 spells, 2 regular gambits in my opener.
Oh, man.
So it's like we're doing it. We've got all the gas here right away.
Send it.
And so, it's just I'm ready to go, feeling great. But Davey, I don't think you were feeling as hot.
I was not. So I've drawn 3 gambits and 2 upgrades. Importantly, one of them is a mask. And then, so I've got the Eternal Smile, which is the damage upgrade. Generally, these masks, it kind of doesn't matter what they are. It just matters that they are a mask. So having a mask is a good thing. I've got Dark Humor, which is a reroll on defense, which is great for these fighters that start on 2 dodge. And then I've got 3 others, which is Scrabbling in the Dirt, which lets me pick something out of discard pile if I'm willing to throw something away, which is a little bit rough this early. I've got Possessive Crouch. It's put me on guard, and if I also have a Mask Stagger everyone around me, that's awesome if you're on 2 dodge. And then I've got Echoing Spite, which is try again if you miss. So a pretty good power hand. Unfortunately, my objective hand, I draw 1 will, which is one of the crucial surges that I want for Sea Glory. So I'm really happy to see this. But my other 2 cards are Completed Pact, which needs me to have more masks on fighters than he has alive. Not going to score in the first round, and might score in the second. It's almost a third end phase, and I have what is actually a third end phase, and that's Dominion of Death. So I have to make. I acted, I think, like this was a tough choice, but really looking at it in retrospect, like there's no way I can carry Completed Pact and Dominion of Death through the entire game, and so I have to mulligan this and hope to draw into something better.
Makes sense.
Which I do. I draw Fleeting Memories, which is great. So it's the other crucial one that I want that gets me the Seed Glory. And then I draw Ghostly Torment, which is have 2 fighters alive and 2 fighters on either side are damaged, which feels very likely to happen because I'm sure Phil's got ping here. And then Nexus of Terror, which feels like with a little bit of work, I'll probably get this. This is hold more objectives. But this is going to end up being quite a bit of work.
All right, and so it looks like for the roll-off for deployment, Davey, you got it, because Sarpon's down front and center, right next to No Man's Land.
Yeah. And leading with Sarpon is, I think, a strong play. He threatens a really accurate attack, and once he's inspired, he is able to hit for 3 damage. So having him right up in the front is going to sort of force that anybody who wants to come and tangle is going to have to really think about that.
Yeah. Sarpon inspired, if he can get adjacent, has lethal damage on all but my leader until I get some inspirations out or upgrades, which is kind of horrifying.
Yeah, which is what I was going to say is, so we got Sarpan front and center. I'm just going to kind of call it out and then say what I think is interesting.
Sure.
So Sarpon front and center, and then you got Domitan and Leona as close as they can be behind him. Meanwhile, for the Mournflight, you got Keitha, who's the down ghost, who starts out at only 2 wounds, way in the back, as she should. Stay back until she can inspire and then get up to 3. Makes sense. Lady Hero up front, because she's got 4 wounds. She can tank a hit if she needs to, but not exactly putting her right up front and center. So a little reserved. We do have the Anguished one popped in within kill shot range of Sarpon. You would have known that Sarpon was there, and you decided to put Anguished one up there next to Objective 2 within range of getting ran on. Like, Sarpon would have to run past Objective 4 in between the 2 block texts in order to hit the Anguished one adjacent. Is that the trade-off that you're looking at? Is if he's going to gun for the Anguished one and get an early kill, he's going to have to forego an objective?
Yeah, and I also know that I have breathing room, because if I go first, I can move away from that spot. If he goes first, he's not going to be inspired with Sarpon. So either way, I'll have a chance to get out of that spot where lethal things could happen.
Okay. All right, interesting. And for the roll-off, looks like Davey.
No, Phil gets it because he got the free crit.
He got the innate. Yeah.
Yep.
Right, makes sense. And
I make
Bill,
Davey
you
go.
decided to have Davey go first? Yep.
Yeah, pretty standard. I have very little incentive to try and go first, as Davey was just explaining. I do not have lethal on anybody. I don't have any free shots, and if I just walk forward towards the ghosts, it gives him easy inspires, and he's just going to kind of get to do what he wants. So better to let him show what he's going to try and do first, and then I can kind of counterplay.
Okay. And so, Davey, your first action is to get that breathing room with the Anguished one, moving the Anguished one onto Objective 5. Now there's a conga line of 3 ghosts in the back.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a tough choice. I couldn't quite figure out, because whoever I committed to moving, I wanted to make progress towards standing on more objectives. I knew I wanted to be standing on stuff early and often to make that more challenging. I think I was also able to do this. I don't remember if I do this, but from that spot, I could score fleeting memories, kind of step through and just get that sea glory right away. So get on an objective, score a sea glory, and see what my next surge is, and then get the Anguish one out of danger.
Just because it can. The conga line from left to right is down ghost, left ghost, right ghost.
That's right. Kate the Anguish Maiden for anyone wondering.
Yes. All right. And that got him fleeting memories.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I surge into Hooded Stranger. So now I've not surged into another end phase. I was really hoping to surge into one of the whole have a mask on an even, have a mask on an odd, something like that. So now I'm sitting on 3 end phase, but they're all definitely doable. If I score them all, they're 6, and the rest of this round is going to be me figuring out how many of these I can score while still not giving up too much board presence.
So with Hooded Stranger, you'd have to make 2 move actions with one of the other ghosts, or like risk Lady Harrow going in there.
Yeah, I figure Lady Harrow late, and if I can hang on, so all of a sudden Possessive Crouch becomes super important. So I'm going to sit on that for as long as I can, because I'm planning maybe to, with my 4th activation, just run Lady Harrow into Phil's territory. You can get 1 across the line, and then I'll slap down Possessive Crouch to get on guard so that he can't just drive me back out.
Yeah, Possessive Crouch, also Smeagol's favorite card.
Indeed.
And Phil here plays Pass the Mantle in the power step.
Yeah.
Inspire Leona.
Yep. So the idea here is to get a level 2 wizard right away. And then Leona gets extra speed and flying to the warband, so it gives me more options for this first move.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then looks like Davy passed, and followed by Howling Gales from Phil.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm figuring I can try and pull the Anguish one off of that objective if I can cast Howling Gales and in the process stagger some fighters.
Yeah.
But I do need to roll a focus, and
he does
do not. So
yeah. In retrospect, I don't, because you have to choose 2 enemy fighters. I think they may not have both been invisible from Leona.
You are correct. I would have had to choose. Anguish one would have been not in line of sight, so I couldn't have chosen Anguish one anyway.
Yeah, but I will happily take a missed spell. It feels like a rarity sometimes. So
Dice gods protect us from making a foolish play.
Yeah.
All right. And then Leona makes her move, charging through the blocked hex. Screw you, ghosts, I can do it too. Landing where Anguished One spawned, and making a charge to attack, I assume, the maiden?
Yes, that will be the target, but I will miss the attack. I roll no successes.
Magic dice.
Feels good.
Yeah, and so
swaps the Inspire to Sarpon.
Yeah, which will then allow Sarpon to react, and we'll go ahead and push Domitan forward a little bit so that he has more options when we get around to using him later.
Yeah, and doing this Inspire trade scores you Channel the Storm, I see.
Yeah, that was another part of wanting to play Past the Mantle before my first activation, is so that after my first activation, I'd get a Seed Glory. I didn't really need the glory, so in some ways I probably should have held on to the card just so I could use it as a surprise Inspire for Sarpon, but I was feeling like I wanted to get my surges going.
Well, and it's always nice to have 3 full activations to plan for a new card.
Yeah.
And what's that new card?
And the new card is Cold of the Void, which is going to be a tough one this early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a conga line. Howling Gales might have helped a little bit, but not so much.
Not really, because it pushes the fighters towards each other. So
there still would have been a cluster, but at least not in the way back there. Anyway, so your next ploy is Frozen to the Spot.
Yeah, so this is just an annoying one. I would put it on the Maiden. Or Lady Harrow, sorry. I get confused about which ghosts are which. But yes, Lady Harrow. And the only reason for doing this is that she's the only one who is at 4 wounds to start. And so if she tries to come in early, she's going to be putting herself in Sarpon threat range.
Yeah, that's a solid idea. And not knowing what Davey had, that certainly causes some consternation over Hooded Stranger, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do hate it. I know somewhere in this deck I have the gambit that heals one, and like you can heal one off your fighter and damage an adjacent fighter. It's kind of a nice setup here, but I don't have it in hand.
Yeah.
What I'm mostly looking at right now is that Leona is in my territory, and I can move. I can move at least one fighter through. Right now, the Maiden can get onto objective 2. It can perform a charge, inspire, and if I can land an attack, I can push Leona into a spot that will let me really just kind of pile on and swarm ghost after ghost through her and inspire them and get more and more attacks. So what I need to do is at least drive her back with my next activation, but I feel pretty good about this setup.
It's like a possession inspire battery.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the Maiden does do that, charges onto objective 2, makes a swing at Leona, and...
Yeah, no successes.
No success.
And then I hem and haw for quite a while because I have Echoing Spite in hand, and I'm like, man, do I make another attempt at a 2 Fury versus 1 block attack here?
Man, I wish you had.
Because that would really do something for me. But I decide that this attack isn't quite consequential enough, and I think that maybe somebody else is coming in. And so I, in the end, decided to leave it. Not just because I think I might have a more important attack later, or a more likely attack. Like if Lady Arrow makes an attack, I'd rather reroll it. But I'm looking at my hand and I'm like, the most likely card that I'm going to discard if I want to process Possessive Crouch twice. So that would be use Possessive Crouch, then use Scrabbling the Dirt to pick it back up. I'm going to have to discard some power card. I'm like, the one I'm most likely to ditch is going to be this Echoing Spite one. So let's hang on to it in case I really want to put 2 people on guard, which maybe I do.
Yeah, so both players pass in their power phase, and then you were correct. Sarpon charges in, passing over objective 4, standing between the 2 blocked hexes to try and make a range 2 swing over Leona's head into the Maiden, who is standing on objective 2. And
actually...
It's actually chasing Heavenly Alignment here, which requires a spell attack. So
making the spell attack.
So I made the spell attack just because I'm chasing my glory rather than kills, which I think it's a tough call, but I think in this situation, like, that's actually okay. Nobody was in kill range, and I would rather keep picking up surges when I have them.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do the dice agree?
So he does have the ability to lay 2 damage out here. I think you lob this at the Anguish one. You roll a channel focus. And
So I have the dice I need.
Yeah.
And then it does hit.
Yeah.
No crit, so only the 1 damage.
Yeah. And I actually thought you were attacking the Maiden, so even I was confused. You hit the Anguished one, drive the Anguished one off, which
because I know
which
you
is
care.
great. Yeah, you know I care, and it's a great. So now I'm only 1 objective ahead on Nexus of Terror, and I know that objective 4 is a lot easier for you to land on.
Yep.
Yeah, and Sarpon passes the leadership stick over to Domitan.
Yeah. And so the reason for doing this, even though Domitan's not in position to use his reaction, is because I know I have Knight's Triumphant, I believe is what it's called, is where you need to have 2 fighters, at least 2 fighters, not in your territory, and have had all your fighters make their reaction to inspire. And so I need to make sure that Domitan gets inspired at some point. So setting that up, since he's now the only fighter who can activate.
Yeah, I'm 100% oblivious to this. I'm like, I don't know. Like, sure, Domitan, why not? He's the next guy to go.
So Heavenly Alignment scores and draw into what?
Yeah, draw into, unfortunately, Knight's Victorious, which is the last thing I wanted to see right now. This one is you have to hold 1 or more objectives in enemy territory, which doable at this point, but you have to have made a kill with damage dealt by a spell. Still technically possible, but not very easy. So I'm kind of hoping for some miracles here to line all that up.
Mm-hmm. All right, and we'll see.
Yeah, I
Keitha
hem and haw a
move
little
on.
bit, but I decided to bring Keitha in.
I just click forward until I either can see what's happening or one of you chimes in.
Sure.
Happy to take a pot shot at what I think is happening.
Yep.
But Keitha moves on to objective number 5, which was recently vacated by the Anguished One.
Yep.
And then he plays Possessive Crouch.
Yep.
All right. So now Lady Harrow goes on guard.
Yeah.
And this is me knowing that Domitan is inspired. Domitan it can do 3 damage. I have frozen to the spot, so I'm worried that Phil's plan is to come in with Domitan, bonk Lady Harrow for 3 damage, and just basically say you're not doing anything this round, and you're 1 ping away from dying. But I misjudged what Phil is going for.
Yeah, so that is definitely something I could have thought about doing and maybe should have, because I do have Cleave right now with Inspired Domitan, so your
Totally
guard
forgot about that.
isn't adding extra defense at all. But I do want to try and get Knights Victorious out of my hand, and since you moved Keitha up, I was feeling like now that she is beneficial to get off of the objective and only 2 wounds, that there's at least a chance that I can sort of take out 2 birds with 1 stone here.
Yeah.
Wow, so you're going for the range 3 spell shot with Grievous.
Yeah.
I suppose you also have Cold of the Void, so you're also trying to break up any sort of groupings.
It would certainly be nice.
Yeah, so if this kills Keitha, then for activation 4, you move Leona to get her out of the Congo line, and then Cold of the Void is in hand. Does the Grievous come through for you? Oh boy, does it! Double Grievous,
and so this is the first of a couple accidental damages to my own fighters where I roll double crits. And then, of course, knowing that I've dealt damage to myself, the worst case scenario would have been if Davey rolled double crits back, but he does not. And so I do get to blow up Keitha. And yes, we inspire Leona after this. That does put Domitan in a bit of an unfortunate situation, as now he's only at 3 wounds left, which means when he is inspired next, he will only have 4 wounds left, which puts him pretty close to being able to be killed, which is not something we would like to see.
Sure, I mean, 1 ping on one of your elite fighters isn't ideal, but I think double crits to secure the spell kill, and then now Leona's inspired, she can just fly over Sarpon's head and land on objective 4 or 5. Or 4 or 5 would take out Cold of the Void, so I suppose that's what you're saying is
yeah, that's what we're looking at.
On my side, this is kind of a devastating turn of events for me.
Still can't hold an objective.
So I am only holding 1. Keitha was holding my 2nd. So if I have to basically commit to one thing or the other, and I'm fairly confident that I'm going to get Ghostly Torment, which is the 2 alive, 2 fighters damage somewhere on the board. So that's locked in. And now I have to decide, am I going to go for Hooded Stranger, which is the mask in enemy territory? I can do that, but if I do it, it is putting myself close enough for Domitan to maybe just kill Harrow. Or do I try and stack up for Nexus of Terror? And I think I decide to spring for Nexus of Terror because I can do this with a Lady Harrow charge, maybe get a little damage started on Sarpon. Because right now, the only damage on any of Phil's fighters are from him being so good at magic.
Yeah, because for the viewers, everybody is currently in the Banshees territory. The Domitans are basically lined up all up in this wall of blocked hexes, and Domitan's plugging the gap between the corner of the max offset diagonal boards, and Lady Harrow's 2 hexes away from him around the corner. She could move 4 to get 1 hex into the Domitan's territory to score the card Hooded Stranger, but Domitan is still at range 2 with her, so just a quick bonk after she pings herself with Frozen to the Spot. So not a fun option. And moving forward, Lady Hero instead decides to fly through Domitan or Sarpon and land on Objective 4, just across, still in their own territory, on the Banshee side of No Man's Land, adjacent to Sarpon.
Yeah,
making a charge. And
I figured this was going to get me a second objective to stand on, so I could probably lock in Nexus of Terror. Phil's either going to have to decide to attack with Domitan, who is no longer inspired and doesn't have lethal, or he's going to have to move. And either way, I think I've got Nexus. So this is like, I'm guaranteeing myself 4 end phase glory with this, and then I might also get some damage out of it. And then it also sets me up for some of the other objectives I might draw or surge into later.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Cold of the Void gets all the more harder for Phil.
Yeah, it's a real mosh pit here.
Yeah. So we've got too many fighters lined up. I know Cold of the Void is now impossible, so I just don't even have to worry about that. And then I basically have to choose, what do I want to chase? I've successfully cast 2 spells already. I have another spell in hand, and I'm trying to score Conduit of Heavens, but that would require that I land another spell attack and roll the spell in my hand. That's the only way it would happen this turn, which is not any way a guaranteed thing. And so instead, I'm thinking I have a guaranteed Knights Victorious because Davey just took his last activation. Well, I shouldn't say guaranteed, but no, I'm pretty sure that I can pick up Knights Victorious at this point with just a move.
Now, real quick, Phil, he's made 4 activations, each time moving a Banshee onto an objective. Were you thinking I need to keep him off objectives as much as possible right now, or? Because you've been doing a great job at it.
At this point,
he has.
I have. But at this point, I'm not too worried about it, just because he's already on 2 again. And so if I don't move, he still holds more. And he's set up for Nexus of Terror and what's the other one called, where you hold an even and an odd? Although you're holding 2 evens at the moment. But either way, I was just thinking, trying to play Denial at this point is not going to work. Like you've already got the objectives you need, so I just need to chase my glory.
Yeah, and you're a 3-1 ahead. You know.
Yeah,
exactly.
I've got a bit of a lead, so I figure let's try and keep some of these end phases going and keep padding the lead.
So 3-1 for Domitan currently as Lady Hero charges on to Objective 4 into an adjacent Sarpon. And it seems that she struck.
Yeah.
Crit success, so 2 damage onto Sarpon. I'm guessing that Sarpon gets pushed here.
Push him away.
And couldn't afford to leave him next to me because Sarpon could potentially inspire after his next activation and might start the next round with like a 3 smash, 3 damage lethal on Lady Hero. Like, you got to get out of here.
2 dodge.
Yeah.
2 dodge is...
It's great until it's not.
Yeah, 3 smash into 2 dodge. I still feel okay about that.
Yep. And so you play Scrabble in the Dirt?
I do, and this is me looking for another. Like I am worried that the maiden might get. Basically, the maiden sitting next to Leona. Sarpon's there. I know that there's some possibilities of different lethal things, and so I end up burning Echoing Spite to put, I think, the maiden on guard. It ends up not being consequential, though. Kind of overthought it a little bit.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Phil plays Blaze of the Heavens and counter, and again, magic.
So this is a bit of a misplay. I shouldn't have even done this, but I was thinking, well, maybe I still can pick up Conduit of Heavens, and I kind of already explained the line of thinking as to where I got to, but instead I got there by rolling a failure on the Blaze of the Heavens. So made the choice easy for myself, but also could have just held on to that and realized that it was the non-ideal play.
But you used up all your luck with the double crit to kill Katha, and so
Sure
you're
did.
back to 0 successes in your spellcasting roll. So,
Yep.
fair trade. And we see Dark Humor come out on Lady Harrow.
Yep.
Upgrade.
I figure that because I did not go for the Hooded Stranger, I no longer is super important immediately where I have a mask. So I've delayed on this for quite a long time, maybe too long for the defensive upgrade played out here. I'm just not sure what exactly Phil's going to do. So I'm like, let's protect the maiden. Let's protect Lady Harrow, kind of spread my defenses out a little bit. And it was all irrelevant because Phil had a different plan.
I did.
Leona, who was adjacent to the maiden, instead moves on to objective 5 to secure Knightly.
Yeah.
Knights Triumphant.
Knights Victorious.
Knights Victorious.
It's kind of weird that they have synonymous names.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're going into end phase. So both passed on power.
Yeah.
And end phase scoring. Davey scores Nexus of Terror and Ghostly Torment.
Yep.
For glory in the end phase. Looks like you will keep your objective and you place the Eternal Smile on Lady Harrow.
Yeah, I like that on her, especially since I have not seen Taking Over. That's a gambit that just triggers the mask. So she's inspired. She's 3 damage, 3 fury, cleave. If I draw into Taking Over, then I can get her up to 4 damage for a round. And then she's threatening lethal on everybody. And with cleave, that's pretty significant. So I need a mask out there somewhere, and she's as good as any. Hooded Stranger feels real easy. So 5 glory. I feel good about my objective and power card situation coming in. I feel less good about the board state because I've already lost a fighter, and I've got a damage on the Anguished One, and Lady Harrow, the maiden, is inspired. But yeah, that's my sitch.
Yep. Drawn up. Looks like you get Knights Victorious for Phil and nothing else. So currently at the end phase score, it's 5-5.
Yeah.
Phil has all 5 unspent. Davey has 3 unspent. Looks like you will be equipping that upgrade, and it is the Chasm Key. And I am getting, looks like going on Leona, who's standing on objective 5 in the Banshee's territory.
Yeah. During scoring, I realized I forgot to do an Inspire. Since it is required, I do Inspire Sarpon. So threatening a 3 damage attack on any of the ghosts at this point. And
currently
so,
Sarpon's in the middle of the board with all 3 ghosts easily within range.
Yeah. So I'm sure Davey does not want to lose this roll off.
Not a big fan. I did draw into so now I'm sitting on a Hooded Stranger, and it's an easy one to score as long as I've got a mask that I can drop.
Yep.
And then I've got 2 good surges. I got Inescapable Hunger, which is end a move adjacent to an enemy, and I've got 1 Will, which is actually all of a sudden kind of awkward because Leona's sitting on objective 5, which is the only odd in my territory, and objective 3 and 1 are kind of far away. Lady Harrow can get to them because she's inspired, but she'll have to like give up on doing any useful damage.
Yeah, she has to. Yeah. She has to banish herself to the frigid Domitan's territory.
Yeah. Power card wise, I drew 2 more masks, which is great. That gives me some more flexibility on what I'm going to score. I drew +1 dice if I got a charge. It's neither here nor there. I drew Shuddering Violence, which makes a charge more effective, and a Hooded Rush, which is awesome. It's going to give me some flexibility for pushes later. I'm really happy to have that in my hand.
Yeah. And I drew up into an unfortunate end phase card with, well, not necessarily unfortunate in that like I'll be able to score it, but unfortunate in that I drew another end phase card where I would have preferred a surge. And then I get 2 more Gambit spells in my hand, so still feeling good about Conduit of the Heavens, and then 2 upgrades and Falling Shards, which is nice to have here because it can turn on the Armor of Ice, which I also drew into.
Cool. So Loaded Sarpon gun. Davey doesn't want to lose this roll off, and you roll 2 crits. That's
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Yep.
And Phil rolls 1 crit. So your choice
Yeah.
to Davey. Davey, you taking it?
Yeah, a little hemming and hawing, but I decided I've got to do it. And this is a tough call. So Sarpon, the problem is that Sarpon's sitting on 2 block. I have lethal. If I can sneak a hit through on Sarpon, I can drop him, and he's a super dangerous dude. However, if I go in and miss that, then I just set somebody up to get killed. I don't actually know if this is the right choice, but I take the Anguish one out of the backfield, and I decide to lay some damage on Domitan.
Charging through Leona and the block text to land adjacent between Domitan and Lady Harrow.
Yeah.
2 dice, you get an 8 crit. That's pretty good.
Yeah. In retrospect, I really wish I rolled this on Sarpon, but
yeah.
And Domitan does not defend. So that'll be 3 damage on Domitan. Push back so that he doesn't have line of sight to anybody. That seems pretty good. Inescapable Hunger scored by the Mournflight.
And it's so 1 existing from his miscast, and then 2 more damage. So Domitan is 1 away from dead, and it makes it real dangerous for Phil to inspire him, because now I have lethal if he chooses to become a large fighter as well. So not great, but I mean it's pretty solid.
Yeah. I wouldn't complain.
Nope.
All right. And what did you draw into replacing Inescapable?
Oh, a card I love to see in this deck, which is Domino Dominance, which is have a mask on an inspired fighter. This is already and it's after a power step. Like the timing window is chef's kiss. Yeah. So I know I'm immediately going to score another glory here before the power step's even over, which is awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah,
pretty good.
All right, but you also bring out the Frostbitten Veil. Who's that going on?
I throw it out. So here's the thing where I'm like, okay, I'm in danger of starting to lose more fighters. Like, I know that Sarpon has the ability to kill anybody. I have not seen Maskborn yet, which is the bring back a dead fighter. So I'm like, what I need to do is just throw a bunch of masks out on the remaining fighters so that if they die, I will be able to bring them back with Maskborn. There's the only consideration to not do this is if like I really wanted a particular mask on Lady Harrow, but without, I'm happy with the one she has, and I haven't seen taking over yet. So
so Frostbitten Veil, the reroll all dice in their attack action if you do this action, and you give it to the Anguished one. They just charged, so that's gamble that basically if he chooses to target them and get an easy kill. Well, he's got 3 wounds now. Okay. Not sure I understand, but
well, it's that or Vitrix's Eye here, I think, is where I'm going. And I was thinking that I bring the Anguish one. I don't know, like it was because you can ignore that charged fighter. So I figured the Anguish one is actually more likely to survive this round than the Maiden, is my thought.
Sure. And Phil then plays Celestial Blades. I didn't see which dice rolled. Did you get it this time?
I do. I get it. And Sarpon's the caster, so he now has rerolls for the round. Which is mostly because I just want to have the one attack he's going to get here before he bites it. Maybe. I don't know if he will, but I'm guessing he's going to. That I want it to be as accurate as possible. And 3 smash with a reroll, it's pretty accurate.
Seems pretty good.
And Vitrix's Eye comes out on the Maiden. Maiden currently has visibility to Leona and Sarpon with that.
Yeah. And now he's got the full mask spread. So he's got masks on everybody, which is no good for me.
And then, after he just cast Celestial Blades, I'm guessing you're putting Charged Weapon on Sarpon too, so he also has Grievous.
Yeah, so this is one where I was actually thinking I will wait to put this out until I know if it's going to be on, like turned on for this activation. If it's not, I'll wait and put it on somebody else, because I do think that he's going to die. But since he activated it with a spell, we'll give him Grievous on this 3 smash 1 reroll attack.
Sounds solid.
This lets you post up and actually have lethal damage from right where you're standing, which is kind of horrifying.
Yeah. And the action economy here is going to become important, I think. So I'm hoping I can put out some lethal without having to charge first.
Well, it looks like you both passed because Domino Dominance comes out.
Yep.
Solid. Can't ask for better timing on that.
Yeah.
What'd you draw into?
I draw into Audacious Aspect. I need a mask on an odd objective, which is a little bit unfortunate because I'm sitting on two evens. Yeah.
Yeah, once again, it's beckoning Lady Harrow off
I know.
to go banish herself.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Awkward. Looks like Phil's activation. We're having Sarpon swinging. Which way is he going? He's got a choice between Lady Harrow and the Maiden.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out.
We'll have to find out because I don't actually remember.
Oh, there's a crit in Sarpon's roll. That doesn't appear. Oh, there's a crit. Was it a crit success and a crit not success?
Yeah, that was it.
Lady Harrow is going to got here.
Well, she has a reroll, so she can reroll into a success. Then she's good. But no, she goes down.
Does not.
Yeah, so she goes down.
Boom.
So get her.
That objective deck looks really sad right now. Oh boy.
Yeah. So we'll pick up the kill. Feels pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm liking where I'm at now. Sarpon does have to pass the mantle though. And I believe at this point I go to Leona because I don't want Domitan to be at 5 wounds. Yeah.
Transfers to Leona. And then I believe in this situation, there's a phrase that Skylar and I and Josh have, which is pork chop sandwiches, get the F out. But instead, the Maiden charges into Sarpon. Okay, not that.
Yeah. So here's the thing is like what I've got in my, like, I cannot get, because the Anguish one's not on an objective. I'm way too far away from the odds that I can get onto. And so I'm like, oh man, I think I'm in trouble. I have to try and knock out Sarpon. I could have fished for a crit with the Eye of Vitrix, but the Maiden can throw. She's inspired, so she can throw 4 Fury Grievous. So I think my best bet here for KOing Sarpon, which seems like the thing I have to do, given that he's 3 smash reroll, whatever Grievous.
No, that makes plenty of sense. I was just thinking, since currently the Anguish one doesn't have. But then again, you could just charge with any of them to get at the Anguish one. But Anguish one didn't have line of sight to any of the Domitan fighters.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would have just been charged anyways. I figured that you might have just ran with the Maiden and try and keep as many as alive.
Well, and this, I need to get charged out because I need the Anguish one to charge. So now that unlocks the ability to move the other fighters is where my head's at here.
Okay. And how does this work out for you? No Grievous.
Not super awesome.
Yeah.
No, we've got a sword on 4 dice into 1 shield, and he gets a shield.
Yep. Yeah. Saves the Sarpon.
Shoved.
And
especially, and this is a clear misplay. I have in my hand, I have Maddening Hunger, which is +1 dice on a charge, and so I could have made this a 5 dice looking for Fury with Grievous 1 charge, which
David,
is,
we know the law of diminishing returns.
we do, but when I'm fishing for a crit, like I really should have played that out. There wasn't a really good reason to hold that, and I'm not sure why I did.
Logic and reason say you should have, but I think the result would have been the same.
Yeah. So I managed to knock him where he can't see me, but other than that, I'm in a bad way. I know that I should probably be able to score Hooded Stranger from here because I can probably boogie one of these guys out. But the other ones, I have a route to 1 will if I can, because I do have Hooded Rush in play. So if Phil doesn't knock me out here, I think I am able to. I've got a plan where I'm going to push one onto an objective and walk the other one to be able to get 1 will and Audacious Aspect. So I'm still feeling pretty good. I've got 2 dodge. It should be fine. And he's coming with Leona, who's the least accurate.
Leona takes exception to your plan and to charge.
She sure does.
Off of 5 into no man's land. So currently foregoing the Chasm Key to get a swing at either the Maiden or the Anguish one.
Actually, the play is in part because of the Chasm Key. So the Chasm Key does not score off of holding objectives. The Chasm Key scores off of having an ice token.
Yep.
And the only
or on a feature.
So
or on a feature? Really?
Or on a feature.
Oh, my Lord. I have never scored it that way, and I should remember that I can do that.
Yep.
All right.
So
Cool.
what am I,
Cool. Cool.
So you're planning for falling shards in and just getting her into the fray before any of these ghosts run too far into your own territory.
Yeah, but I mean, it works out, right? Because this way, Leona's in a pretty good spot to be able to start being a turret.
Yeah.
And since she's the only one without damage on her, I actually feel pretty solid about putting her in a spot where she can start just lobbing shots at people.
Yeah, it's a good play.
Yeah, Domitan and Sarpon currently on opposite sides of a block text with the other two Banshees, so they're happy to let Leona get in there and take a few hits.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I'm actually feeling
double crit here again.
I do.
Good Lord.
I did say that I was the first of a couple, and so here we go again with.
I was feeling good about my plan to get one will and audacious aspect because I'm like, Leona doesn't have lethal here. She's gonna, even if she managed to get something through, which obviously she does.
Yeah.
I do go through the pantomime of trying to get double crit on my defense.
And let's play that out. No, that's just supports.
Yeah, look at that.
Successes.
Didn't work. Shocking. So I do lay out some more damage on the Anguished one. So Anguished one is up to 3 wounds now.
Yeah.
Right.
And so this will also increase my spell count. Unfortunately, I had to pay a wound to do it, which is rough. I have to pass the mantle here. I passed to Domitan. Because the fun thing with Domitan is he can stun everyone within 2 of him when he becomes inspired. And
this is a crushing blow. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah,
forget about that.
Get to stagger both of his ghosts. Well, neither of them have line of sight to Domitan.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
He just sends a tremor through that block text and staggers them. All right.
Yeah.
So feels pretty good.
For the listeners, we've got 2 activations down by Domitans, 1 done by Banshees. So they'll be going into their second of round 2. Current standing is 6 points to Domitan, 7 points to the Banshees.
Yeah, I think it might be 2 and 2 activations. I think I might have forgotten to flip one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I go ahead and put the Armor of Ice onto Leona. 1, because I can make her 2 block, but more importantly, she becomes a level 2 wizard when this is on with the ice counter. Yeah. And I know I can give her the ice counter.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And then Hooded Rush from Davy, pushing the Maiden onto objective number 4, adjacent to Leona. Then Phil's playing Falling Shards to get that ice counter out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Facing a block text adjacent to Leona, opposite of Leona from the Banshee, so it's not inhibiting anybody's movement through no man's land, really. Getting that token out.
Yep.
And then Freeze Thaw finished, since now he's freshly a level 2 wizard as well. Did you?
Yep.
You didn't backlash yourself here.
I'm sure Davey would have preferred I did, but I don't.
God, this was soul crushing because I was like, all right, he's doing all this stuff. He's down to just 1 card left. I think I'm still gonna get my 2 Glory Surge play coming up here, and then Phil destroys it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Phil drops in at the second block text on the opposite side of the no man's land funnel, creating a true bottleneck now adjacent to the Anguished one and killing the Anguished one.
So I definitely needed this kill because I knew that I needed the ping for the kill anyway. The only unfortunate side of doing this is that now I've kind of bottlenecked myself. Sarpon and Domitan don't really have a route back into my territory right now. And what I don't expect is for you to just run away from me into my territory. I was thinking, Leona's just going to get chopped because you've got multiple activations left.
Well, instead she pork chops it out of there. Finally get GTFO.
It's gone.
I thought about this because here's the situation. I have 1 fighter left with 3 wounds. She is on 4 Fury Grievous damage too, so she could do lethal on Leona, but I'm like, if I hang out here, Domitan's going to come in. I'm already staggered. You would have support. I'm just asking for this game to be over. So I just need to stretch the game out a little bit longer.
Yeah. Not with that stagger, especially. But Seems like a wise move. Seems like it might have been wiser earlier, but audacious aspect comes out. And what do you draw instead?
I draw into Dominion of Death, and this is where it's a third end phase where I have to score the most objectives. Now, the good news is that I've scored 6 to Phil's 3, so I've got a good lead on this. If I can go first in the last round, I feel actually pretty decent on this. I'm holding Hooded Stranger, which is almost guaranteed to score, so that's another 2 glory and another objective. I'm going to have to get rid of 1 will.
Yeah. Yep. So really unfortunate thing about this play is that I'm still sitting on the Conduit of Heavens, and Davy's too far away for me to take a shot at. So I have no way of casting another spell, and I was also in a position where Sarpon and Domitan were adjacent, so I had to move one of them to be able to score Cold of the Void. Mm-hmm. So while fishing for a spell potentially could have gotten me where I needed to be to score Conduit, I felt like at this point getting the end phase card out of my hand is more important. So I go for a move with Sarpon, and in retrospect, this is a mistake. I move him back onto objective 2, which is pretty far away. I have one more card that cares about doing stuff with feature tokens, but I don't really have a good reason for doing this right now. I could have moved in the next round to do that. Is just like, maybe I just need to hold this objective for denial reasons, which is silly because I already know that Davey scored his hold more. So this is just a straight misplay. I should have just moved Sarpon closer so that next turn he could threaten a charge.
Yeah,
but I don't.
To be fair, the board state looks really good for you. Like you have all 3 of your fighters. Like it seems like you have a little wiggle room.
The scoreboard suggests though that this game is not in any way won, and that I need to be playing for every possible advantage.
Yeah, for the listeners, we're in round 2, 1 action remaining by each player. Domitan himself has 3 wounds, so he's currently vulnerable, uninspired. Leona is now inspired. She has 1 wound on herself because of backlash, and Sarpon has 2 wounds way in the back on objective 2, fitting. Meanwhile, Davy with the Mournflight has the Maiden is the inspired remaining fighter with Vitrix's Eye, sitting way back in Domitan's territory on objective 3. And the score currently is 7 Domitan to 8 Mournflight.
Yeah.
So, Davey, what is your 4th activation of round 2?
I mean, I really considered the possibility of just cycling one will, which is unscorable, but I know I'm going to get an auto score on that instead. So what I decide to do is move even further away. I'm not really sure that this is a great play, but I moved to another objective just to try and get a little further away from Domitan, because I know that the block text that's jamming him up is about to melt, and I want to make it harder for him to get to me next round.
Yep. So the Maiden trades objective 3 for objective number 1.
Yeah.
All right. And then no power. Looks like for your 4th activation, Domitan draws a power card, eh?
I do. This is sort of that desperation draw to see like, well, maybe I'll draw into one of my passive spells and I could just finish this with a spell cast and pick up Conduit, but I don't. There's a number of cards I would have liked to see drawn here. The one I drew was in no way the card I wanted. It was essentially useless in the Tome of Shattering, which is one of those control cards that I've talked about, sort of tweaking this deck to figure out how much does it play control versus how much does it play aggressive.
Because that's a upgrade type spell, and then it itself breaks, correct?
No. So you cast this as a spell action from the upgrade. It targets an enemy fighter within 3, breaks one of their upgrades, and then you get an ice counter.
Doesn't it itself break?
It does not.
Oh. Thought I read that once and I was like, no, that's dumb. Cool.
Yeah, so the other benefit of
right?
having this in the deck is that it is another spell that you can cast that doesn't involve defensive rolls. Not always useful, but it sometimes comes up.
Yeah. So I read the card and then I made some stuff up. And then we go into end phase scoring. We get Hooded Stranger out from Davey. One will goes in the bin. And it looks like you keep your third.
I do, and that is Dominion of Death. I've got the Glory of Despair, so I just throw Maddening Hunger out. So if I get the chance, I can charge in. And then I think I got a little jumbled up. I was intending to throw out Shuddering Violence, just because I was looking for some better stuff. It was just one kill that would get me there, so I'll eventually get there. But I'll draw into Completed Pact, which is unscorable, unfortunately. And Stoic Appearance, which is have an objective, have a mask wearer on an objective. So I know the last card in my deck is a Surge that I can score. If I can spare the actions and cycle to it, I know I'm going to end with a total of potentially 9 objectives scored before Dominion of Death comes out. So I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Nice.
Yep.
And then for Phil, Thunderstruck and Cold of the Void get scored.
Yeah, so Thunderstruck was the end phase card I drew at the start of the round. It was scored immediately when I drew it, so I knew I was going to have it, but unfortunately it meant that my hand wasn't going to be cycling at all in round 2. So I've only scored 5 of my cards, and I've only seen 6 of my objectives at this point. So I got a little bit bricked by Conduit of Heavens, both in rounds 1 and 2. I was 1 spell away. It's just not where we want to be, especially now towards the end where I've used up a lot of my resources.
All right. So currently 10-10, and Tome of Shattering goes out on Leona, keeping your third objective and drawing up.
Yeah. So at this point, not loving what I've drawn into. I drew into Biting Wind, which yet another of my end phases. This is like the worst possible thing to have right now because Davey's already in my territory pretty deep. And then I drew Scouring Arcs as my other surge, which is still doable. Like, I'm not upset about having a kill surge at this point, but like there are other things I would have rather seen first. So the card draw was not ideal here, but the power hand is not bad. I've got 2 Gambit surges, Gambit spells again. And then I've got my 2 upgrades for improving my spellcasting odds, which I'd been missing pretty early on in this game. I really would have liked to see those. If for nothing other than to save myself some backlash.
All right, and roll off for round 3. We have a win for Domitan.
Yeah.
What's your choice here? Going first, I see.
Yeah, so I choose to go first here because I'm really far away, and Leona's already inspired, so I do have the extra move in flying to start things off. So I decide...
this is a rude surprise for me because it's like, all right, I don't have to worry about Sarpon. He's waiting, and like, oh no, he's flying and fast. No,
we can Banshee too.
Yeah.
So Sarpon flies through the blocked hexes, comes up into no one's territory next to Leona so that he can take a shot at the maiden. It's not a super accurate attack right now, but I'll take it at this point. But I roll no successes once again.
Shoot it.
And so it's a whiff of a charge and sets Sarpon up in a pretty bad spot. I was thinking that, like, even if he charges forward, he's not going to just get killed. But then Davey kindly reminded me that Vitrix Eye does have Grievous. So
yeah,
feels bad.
Sarpon hands off the leadership stick back to Domitan, so he's a big boy fighter now, but he's safely out of range.
That is the idea, is that I still have not seen Knights Triumphant. So if they all survive, I do need to inspire them all. And I would rather get Domitan's Inspired taken care of early because I might just need to leave him back there.
And so on your front rank, you got Leona with Armor of Ice, so she's 2 block, but Sarpon's feeling a little vulnerable. It looks like you play Azurite Halo in order to try and mitigate his dice.
So I play Azurite Halo, and I'm trying to cast this with Leona, although I choose to wait to do it because I realize that I'm holding both Crown of Storms and Scrolls of the Spellseeker, and there's no reason that I should be trying to cast a spell before I play those.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So we will play Crown of Storms first to get a reroll.
Crown of Storms goes on Leona. Meanwhile, Davey over here playing Maskborn, get a Resurrection.
Yeah, and this
one.
feels really bad. I was just like, not at all what I was hoping to have happen.
Bringing the Anguish one back to do a Frostbitten Veil action?
No, so this is I would just bring her onto the board. Phil and I discussed this actually. We're like, what is the better play? Because I can actually attack any one of Phil's fighters, and I have lethal on any one of his fighters.
Yeah.
The thing is that Leona is on 2 block.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarpon, who I had already seen, and then Phil had kind of hidden away again, but the -1 dice thing. But that wouldn't come into play here.
Yeah.
So I'm deciding, like, oh God, do I try and get one of these fighters that is close and threatening me, or do I go for the 2 glory, the Domitan, who thought he was safe? And then the choice is, does the Anguished one come out? The Anguished one is the one who, if you roll or that defensive crits don't count as successes.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can get a crit on this attack, then it's just an auto death because he can't do any better. Or do I go with Lady Harrow, who is also 3 Fury but has Cleave? And we talked about it back and forth. We're not sure which is the more accurate attack. They got to be really close.
Yeah,
it's spicy.
It's not a bad spot to be in. I think either choice is fine, and it put me in a really tight spot because I wasn't thinking about this, and I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to inspire Domitan because I need him to inspire at some point, but I want him to be safe. Well, now I've just set him up to be assassinated for 2 glory, which
this
bad.
card feels like the that Undertaker gif where he just like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Does Domitan get it? Oh boy, the Anguish
and so I'm like soul crushing. I roll a Fury, and I was like, I picked exactly wrong. If I'd gone with Lady Harrow, then I'd have Cleave on this. Now
roll. Oh,
Domitan rolls nothing, and Domitan eats it and puts me in a 2 glory hole to start off round 3.
Yeah,
and it just
feels
feels
a good contingency plan, Davey.
Really awful.
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is pretty huge.
Yeah. So in retrospect, I probably should have inspired Leona here, because we're going into your activation, and there's no way you were going to be charging to go get Domitan. So I had time to inspire him. So
So Domitan's down, Anguish one vaporizes away like the Undertaker meme that they are. And
absolutely.
Scrolls of the Spellseeker goes out on Leona, and Azurite Halo gets cast, but fails to cast? Or does it cast?
So Scrolls of the Spellseeker makes it succeed because Scrolls is a ridiculous card that makes all of your spellcasting rolls succeed on channels.
So
it's a success. And so now my thinking is that, well, Davey probably is going to want to try a last effort charge sometime in this round. So I want to try and make sure that any ranged 1 attacks that he's going to have to do, he's going to have to position away from Leona, or else he'll be at -1 dice. Davey resists said temptations and is like, nah, bro, I've got this Vitrix Eye. I'm just going to blast you. And it's like,
so I started blasting.
But it looks like you play Pillar of Lightning.
So what I'm doing right now, so I've managed to cast one of my Gambit spells. I go ahead and I just try and get another one cast so I can rack up spellcasting attempts. The weird thing here is that I was like double faking myself out, thinking like, well, he's probably going to want to land in an objective, and if he does, maybe he'll have to land on this 4 next to Leona, which means he'd get hurt because it's a lethal, and it's like just flying. You just don't take damage when you're moving over lethals. So all around, this is kind of a weird play for me because it's just an extra spell cast. I could have held on to this until later.
But wasn't flying changed so that they ignored lethal so long as it's a voluntary move action by the controlling player, so that you can still get knocked back into it?
Yeah, you can, but
I would have to be tremendously goofy to make that relevant here.
There was no way that was going to happen.
Not with the range 3, but so looks like you cast Vitrix's Eye at Sarpon, and
so I'm feeling doubly excited about this because I'm like, if I crit, I'm just going to kill Sarpon because I've got Grievous 1. If I don't, I've got 1 damage and cleave. I'll get 1, and I have taking over in hand, so I can do it twice. So I'm feeling real good about my odds of killing Sarpon here. Unfortunately,
first roll you get double supports.
Yeah, which is not going to do it. So he does in fact bring out that extra chance.
Take over. Vitrix's Eye. Is this a Banshee with a Vitrix's Eye on taking over doing it?
Yeah, it is. So how could you fail? It's right there on the card.
There's no freaking way to distinguish which Banshee this is on the card, though.
Who could possibly say?
Oh, did you roll the same thing?
I rolled exactly the same thing. Don't even make Phil roll any defense dice.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So it's at this point that I then, feeling very confident after Davey fails to hit me twice, I make a pretty serious blunder here.
You said you felt very confident, yet you only charge 1 hex to make a range 3 attack into the maiden.
I do.
Doesn't seem confident.
So only moving forward the 1. So my thinking, for whatever reason, I keep thinking that Davey's going to want to move away from my territory. And I don't know why I was thinking that. Like, he's probably pretty happy to just be camped out. And so I only move forward 1 so that Leona is more centrally located. So if he does move back, that I have a pretty good range to hit anywhere he'd move to.
Yeah.
The real dumb thing about this move, though, is that now if I get driven back, I can't shoot again.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing about this roll is that I do, in fact, roll 2 focus, which is no longer successful because I have the scrolls out.
Oh, man. So you got burned by the scrolls, huh?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. But I have the reroll, so I ended up rolling into the
rolls
crit.
Into a crit.
Which is pretty good,
Pretty good. And Maiden does not get a crit in response.
So 1 damage, but Phil's got the opportunity to drive back and chooses not to.
I choose not to because I'm thinking that I want you to be within range to charge. I use Sarpon's push when he inspires to get him out of the eye range. The only unfortunate side of doing this is that I was not thinking about the fact, again, that if you push Leona now, Leona can't shoot again.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I know that I need to spare 1 activation during this round. I have to cycle out completed pact, because I would have to wipe you off the board for that to score. And in that case, I'm probably winning anyway, and that'll cycle me into my last surge that will score me. And I really want to get that so that I have a chance to score Dominion of Death. So although I have 3 activations left, I think I really kind of only have 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like, making another shot at Leona, and 2 success versus the 1. So 1 damage onto Leona.
But more importantly,
the drive back. And watching it back now, I'm like, what in the world was I thinking with anything in this 3rd round? I had all the advantage. I should have just been pressuring you, and instead I was like playing really coy and trying to hold back and like play it safe, and that made no sense at all. So
What's your objective hand look like? Are you scoring a bunch right now, or
Me? No.
Yeah.
I'm scoring nothing right now. I needed to get another spellcast to pick up Conduit of Heavens. And so all of this stuff that, like I said, I didn't think about the drive back pushing me out of range.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was like, oh, crap. Now I'm sort of stuck in a situation where I have activations, but I don't have range, and I've charged out. Which
it's very weird, like minimal damage pinging maiden sitting, stay away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's ahead, so like that's all he needs to do.
And I've got Envy's Shroud in hand, so this is if I ever get kind of scared about where the damage situation is, I'm just going to break Vitrix's eye and put the Shroud on instead to try and keep myself alive for this last round.
Yeah, and so I do some checking of the cards left in my deck for power cards because I know I need one more spellcast to cycle into more cards. I'm basically thinking, what's left? What do I have? There's a couple options in my deck. I've got 4 power cards left in the deck. There's a couple different options that would be good for me. And so I go to draw a power card here for my activation because I figure one way or another I could put myself back into a situation that would let me get this 4th spellcast. But I draw, not entirely the worst possible option, but one of the worst possible options. In Master of Ancient Lore, I'm gonna play it anyway because, like, well, maybe Davey really has to play a power card, but there was basically 0 chance he was gonna play a power card because why would he just hand me more power cards? So yeah, real bad. Just really puts me in a bind here.
Davey cycle is completed, packed, and gets that card you wanted.
This picks up that Surge, which
I realized because I kept on forgetting which one I scored. This is Vision of Success, which needs me to be on an even. I'm like, oh God, I'm over here on these odds. Damn it. Yeah.
So you cycle, we go to my final, and I believe, I cycle out Scouring Arcs because there is not a good chance that I'm going to be able to score Scouring Arcs at this point because I didn't have range on you. My thinking was that if I cycle out Scouring Arcs, I could draw into what's it called? The one where you have 2 enemy fighters dead. Which is just like free 2 glory at this point. So I was like, well, that plus Chasm Key at least gets me up to 13. So then it's like, maybe Davey doesn't have anything else, which was obviously not going to be the case, but it's the best chance I thought I had. And I drew into Heaven Sent, which I have to cast a spell holding an objective in enemy territory. So no good.
Currently got 3 cards remaining in your objective deck, so that's a lot to fish through. But
and that was my final activation. So I know at this point I've lost, no matter what Davey does.
Yeah, I hem and haw. I'm trying to like think of worst case scenario here. I'm like, do I like I could charge the Maiden and make an attack on Sarpon. We're like, does that risk the Maiden dying because he might have like Final Curse or something? So I kind of go back and forth a bunch of times. It actually doesn't matter. But there's a lot of Phil tolerated me being real back and forth about like, gosh, what do I do? And Phil's like, I'm not scoring very much. I actually do end up giving you something by this, but I run over, score my Surge.
The net effect is
the Maiden finally leaves objective 1, landing on back in his own territory, and onto objective 4, getting Vision of Success, which, like you said, gives Phil Biting Wind.
Yeah, net effect was that it didn't change the score, but in totality, he still has easy win here because he's got 3 glory end phase here to
plus a 1,
it out.
so Stoic Appearance and Dominion of Death both score and bump me all the way up to 17.
Yeah. So I do get Chasm Key and Biting Wind, put me up to 12. A truly disastrous round 3 from a pretty dominant rounds 1 and 2. Like I said, watching it back, it feels really bad. There's like 4 different things that I know for a fact were just complete misplays, and I don't know why. But yeah, that is what will happen when you make a bunch of misplays and your opponent plays very well. They will blow you out in the last round, even with 1 fighter left alive.
Yeah, running Banshees are sitting just chilling on an objective and just making easy attacks. They are confident on their objectives, and you should be concerned.
Yeah.
But it's hard to recognize that in the moment.
Yeah.
So final score, 12 to Domitan, 17 to the Mourn Flight or Mask Flight. So thoughts on your guys's, we've heard a lot from Phil's performance thoughts. Davey, do you have any thoughts on your performance?
So this is a deck that really wants card order to happen in a particular way, and it didn't come out perfectly, but it came out good enough, especially given that mulligan, that early mulligan I took was putting me in a pretty dangerous spot. I also saw some. I have this tendency, particularly with this deck, you kind of wait often, delay playing out masks because you want to make sure to put it on the person who's going to live. But I have a tendency to do that with upgrades in general, and I did that at least a couple times where I waited longer than I should have to put out an upgrade that might have helped my board position, and that kind of got me further behind than I should have been. So I got to the end of round 2. Maybe they would have changed something. Maybe they wouldn't have if I'd gotten a reroll out sooner or something like that. But it was it felt all right. It was a challenging matchup. We'd seen. I think we'd done this exact matchup where Skylar and Phil had played as well.
Yeah,
and you jumped out to a pretty big lead, and he kind of matched you pace for pace afterwards. But you had too much of a lead early on, and it was kind of never in doubt.
Yeah, I think I got out to a pretty crazy ping kill on Keitha. Like he had deployed Keitha on the very back line, and I charged in and then was able to double ping on Keitha for a kill and like the second activation, and managed to score like 8 in the first round, which is pretty backbreaking. Like I don't know how you come back from that. But yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good reminder that Mourn Flight still exists and they're still very potent. I feel like we haven't seen them around as much, but they are definitely not to be trifled with. And I think
one of our attempted matches, I did my Force of Frost Efflume. That was our first match trying this bat rep out. And I did not realize that I had to be the beatdown on Mask Flight, and I realized that too late.
Yeah, thankfully I did remember that from a lot of previous matchups into Mourn Flight, that they are going to outpassive you most of the time, so do not just let them sit in their territory, float around through blocked hexes and objectives and score while you do nothing, because that will lose you games in a hurry. I don't know that there's a whole lot else to say other than that masks work well with them. They are all on 2 dodge.
That is a Death Warband that has no resurrection.
Right.
Aside from like the resurrect gimmick of Maskborn, they don't actually get any raised fighters. Have you guys, since this game, adjusted your decks?
I have not tweaked this much. The only thing I'm thinking, so I had cut the, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a spell that lets, not a spell, a gambit that lets Mourn Flight activate a fighter with double move. And I'm not sure what I'd cut, but I might like to have that back in because there was early on like, man, in that, especially in that first round, I was like, there's some nice things I'd be able to do if I had the double move. I could just shoot somebody way into the back of your backfield, have them set up camp, and not worry about it. Get that inspire, and instead, like the inspire is harder than it seems. Like you do have to be fairly close, and then it really messes with your positioning. But at the same time, to put some counter pressure on the inspire is important. I had just switched in shared agony, which was the heal yourself one to damage somebody one, and did not see it. But there were times here where it could have been quite big.
I'm sure you were praying for it.
I would have liked it, but I really have been enjoying playing this and Grimwatch with masks because there's so much positioning things going on, and it's less about knocking fighters out. It feels like a little bit of a throwback, but not in like an oppressive way. They've been some really pretty fun games.
Yeah.
It's been really cool to see and hear about all the different mask shenanigans. It's a really fun deck. It was hard to see how exactly it would play out when we were first reviewing it, and now that we've seen a bunch of different reps, it is a lot better than I actually expected it to be. And a really, really cool addition to the Nemesis pool. As to modifications to my deck, I'm definitely still looking at a few different options. I really don't like running Biting Wind, but the other options for end phases are not great either. So it's sort of like trying to figure out what's the least bad final end phase to include. There's a few different things, like Frozen Fate is one, but if you lose 2 fighters, you can't score it, so that feels bad. Glacial Cool is sort of theoretically possible, but it's a leader holding an objective, which because of the inspire mechanic with these guys now means that moving fighters onto objectives and having them be inspired is very difficult. So pretty much anything that says have a leader hold is fairly unrealistic.
And you already have Winter's Hunger in the deck?
I do not have Winter's Hunger either, which is also something that had to come out because of the errata change. Because the only reliable source of ice counters in the decks, unless you want to take like ice darts. No, not even that. So for folks who don't know, the errata change for Domitans is that after a fighter's activation, you must take the reaction to inspire one of the other two. That reaction window occupies your after the activation window, which is where most activation windows are for reactions, which also means that almost all of the reliable sources of ice counters are blocked out until you've lost a fighter. And then you have to be making moves with your non-inspired fighter intentionally so that you don't have to do the reaction to be able to then stack ice counters. So it's basically a non-starter at that point. You don't play to score with ice counters except for with one. Because they have multiple sources of ways to get one ice counter that are not always super reliable, but still doable. You've got 2 on the upgrades that you can put out. You've got the spell from the book, and then you've got the falling shards, which can give it to you for free and has the added benefit of potentially blocking line of sight when you need it to. Yeah. I'm still sort of going back and forth as to like, is this too aggressive? And I think part of the problem I have with playing it is that if it is as aggressive as it is right now, I need to remember that I'm the beatdown. Because like in this matchup, like I said, I got too conservative and lost myself a game. Not that there was guarantees that I was going to pull it out, even if I did charge more aggressively, but it makes for a hard back and forth with the deck trying to be sort of in the middle ground.
Well, Brian, any last thoughts, or should I wrap this thing up?
No, it was interesting to watch. Yeah, Mask Flight, awfully tempting. I wish I had a warband that could rep them well, or bring the masks well. But with new Spike Claw Swarm, if they still have resurrection mechanics, maybe.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you have to think, right?
I think the article even said that they did have the ability to bring people back. If they have the ability to get Seed Glory a little easy, then I think that's totally a viable thing. It'll be cool to see them repped in something outside of death as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when all this stuff comes in, because we're about a month out from Adepticon, which theoretically leaves the window open, but not by much. So if we're looking at 3 weeks out, it's too late.
If they land in time, could we see Jimmy Molini with Spike Claw Swarm and Gerard with Mollog come to Adepticon?
Crazier things have happened.
Oh my god! All right. Hey, Brian, thanks for marching us through that. If folks want to get in touch with us, they can talk to us. The best places on our Discord or any of the other Discords where we roam around. But there is an invite to our podcast network's Discord in the show notes. You can talk to us at WTHcast or whatthehexcast@gmail.com. All the Mortal Realms content is on themortalrealms.com. There's also a link there where you could support us on Patreon if you want, just kind of a tip jar to say thanks. We really need to mention one more time that Skylar has kicked off his What the Decks thing. Go check that out. It's on our YouTube channel. You can see him do a deck build. I believe he also did something with masks here, so keeping that mask spirit alive. So I have not gotten to watch it yet. My plan is to do it tomorrow.
He'll be doing those every Tuesday at 12 Central Standard Time.
Yeah, you can watch it live and heckle him while he's doing it, or you can watch it after the fact. So let's see. Coming up, we are going to who knows if we get new stuff, we'll cover the new stuff. Otherwise, we'll keep on checking different things out here. Maybe some ideas on tournament prep or some such, but that will be determined by what GW releases and when. We do, gentlemen, have a flavor text quiz.
Oh man.
Okay. This is perhaps obvious, but it is coming from Masks. So the quote is unattributed. Named after a god beast with a lethal gaze, Vitrix's eye constantly wrestles for control of its host.
Taking over.
It is taking over, yeah.
Got the art of the just crazy eye beam going on, like
and it specifically had a banshee on there. So
very good.
I enjoyed that Brian called that out specifically during. I was like, oh, he's going to lock this one down.
Yeah,
it's going to be
got it.
Yeah, nice to have those sometimes. Recommended listening is a song from a group that I like a lot. Is The Band. Music from Big Pink is the album, and it's a long black veil, which felt like a appropriate mask for the Banshees. That is a traditional tune that they cover, but I like their version. And that's going to do it for us. For What the Hex, I've been Davey.
This is Phil.
I've been Brian.
Cool. Let's go find the stop button. Make sure all the kinks are out. You may be sad to know that the mustache is gone.
I'm actually extremely sad to hear that.
All right.
Starting recording. Never again.
Never
That is
again.
my promise.
Never again.
Yeah. That was rough.
Could have been a lot worse.
Could have been worse. That's always a real encouraging thing to have to say.
Yeah. Could have gotten all the way to the end.